Welcome to Between Product and Partnerships, a podcast focused on bringing together product, partnership, and engineering leaders to discuss how to build, support, and scale SaaS ecosystems. This podcast is presented by Pandium, an integration platform for building native integrations. Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast, Between Product and Partnerships. For those of you that are just joining us for the first time, we talk about the challenges of technology partnerships, integrations, and SaaS platforms. And we also talk to experts and leaders about how they're navigating the space and anything that they can share that they've learned. Today, I'm welcoming our guest, Gary Ballabio, who's the VP of Technology Partnerships at Cloudinary. Welcome, Gary. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, just to give our audience just a brief overview of your background in technology partnerships, how you got to your current role, maybe a little bit about Cloudinary also.
Sounds good. I'd be happy to do that. So I'm currently at a company called Cloudinary. Cloudinary is a media management platform. So it's a service that caters directly to developers and to different types of creators as well. So we're a SaaS-based offering, and we have a various level of APIs that allow our users to upload their own assets, whether they be images and videos, and then modify them and edit them, leveraging our APIs so they can automate that process and be able to modify contents at scale. That's the gist of it. And in terms of my role, I started in technology, over 20 years ago now, and I spent time in engineering. I spent time in pre-sales on the sales engineering side. I also spent time on the customer account management side and professional services. I spent some time in products and then also time in sales. And, all of those experiences combined really make it a great combination for technology partnerships, where you're taking, experiences from product, experiences from engineering and sales, combining them in order to create an integrated solution that could solve unique customer requirements. And that's how I think about technology partnerships. It's really at the nexus of product engineering and sales. And really, it's really geared for somebody who is able to be able to think like a product person, be able to sell, different services, and be able to, study different markets, different companies and technologies, thinking through about how they work, how they price, how they can be bundled. And that's what interests me in the role as well. That's what I enjoy about the role. It's that combination of all those different skill sets coming into one, just one role.
Yeah. And with your background in product, I feel like a lot of the technology partnerships people that I've spoken with, they don't necessarily have a lot of them don't tend to have a technical background. So I'm curious what aspects of your role or what understanding of your more product focused roles, what was applicable like in technology partnerships, like for someone who may not have that technical background coming in, what are some of the things they should really focus on, like learning and honing in so that they can have those more product focused conversations?
Sure. I mean, I think it will depend on the company that you're working for and the service and the types of partnerships that you're going to create. But in my experience, I have a lot of infrastructure-based technology experience. So working with different cloud computing providers, working with different CDNs, and it's really that level of understanding of the technology, as well as the business practices for those markets, that helps me do my job and helps me become successful. And I think in general, in any like B2B sales technology, B2B sales company, I do find, and I've seen in the past, where the more technical you are, the more success you can have, because if you're really able to understand the technology at a deeper level, at a lower level, I think it helps you explain it to others, especially if you're able to explain it in a simple way. So take complex concepts and then just boil them down for anybody to understand, no matter what level it is. So go as far deep as you can from a technical standpoint, but then up level it too, depending on who you're talking to. So really, it's really like the people that are able to do that in general, whether it be in sales or even in technology partnerships. I think those are the ones that do well. I think as much as you can understand the technology of your own service, as well as the other companies that you're looking to partner with, the more success that you'll see. So for me, it's really around the infrastructure parts of it
Mm.
that I had to learn and I had to continue learning as well. There's new services out there, there's new capabilities, so it's a constant journey of learning different services and different technologies.
Right. So definitely staying up to date with the space that you're in. But let's say we're trying to, talk to the product team about a potential like, integration
Yep.
that we want to build.
Yep.
What are some points, general points that someone could focus on like gathering in order to like make that argument?
Sure. So I think for any partnership, of course, there you have to take a good amount of time to assess the technology itself, and yourself having to figure out like what are the integration points that make sense. One, the feasibility of it, but then
Mm,
two, thinking about the end user experience. So why should these two technologies come together in the way that you're thinking that they should come together? What unique challenge or problem is that going to solve? And what is the potential demand for solving that challenge in that way? Um, and there's a lot to take a look at, especially when you're looking at the company. So it all starts with the technology itself, and again, figuring out those elements around the integration points, figuring out the potential demand, but then also looking at the two companies themselves. Like, how similar are these two companies? So today, is the company that you're talking to from a partnership standpoint, do they sell to the same personas that you're selling into? Are the services themselves just complementary already? Are they solving unique needs, but have to come together from from an infrastructure standpoint or something like that in order to solve a more holistic problem for the customer? Um, there's and so there's elements on the technical side and there's elements on the business side that also need to be looked at. And I think when you're assessing these situations, being able to describe that as deeply as possible to a product person, to an executive, really just helps with your success in being able to get support for that partnership.
yeah. And that kind of makes me think about something else that we were going to talk about today, which is really like when you're picking your strategic partners, doing
Yep.
so in a way that like optimizes ROI. Um, Especially now, I feel like partnerships people are getting a lot of scrutiny in some organizations around their ROI.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I'm curious to hear kind of like a general framework that you use to pick your strategic partners.
Sure. So let me just take a step back. So of course,
Sure.
any technology partnership, it has to start with the technology and the technology integration, and then for both companies, there needs to be a reason why they want to do this, right? And it could be because one side needs to adopt the technology or the other to fill a product gap, to fill a feature gap. um, and maybe there's some monetary value to the other partner, right, of that the company doing that. It could be just a marketing based partnership. It could be a sales based partnership. Like there's and it could help grow each other's market share. It could help one side or the other reach new markets. So really, there needs to be that level of understanding of the why. So like, why do we want to bring these companies together, these technologies together? And there's a lot of different ways you can establish the partnership. I mean, you can have referral partnerships, reseller partnerships, OEMs, embedded approaches, value-added resellers. Like there's a lot of potentials there. But so you really that really needs to be understood. And from an ROI standpoint, it really comes down to understanding the sales plays, understanding the technology fit and like what challenges it's going to solve. Um, you know, but really from a high level, there needs to be some sort of mutual benefit. So there needs to be a
Mm.
benefit for yourself, your own company, and figuring out what your own goals are, but then also considering the other side. What are their goals? What are their challenges? And what are they trying to accomplish from a market standpoint? Are they trying to reach different customers? Are they a similar size, to your company? Are they a larger company? So like there's differences between partnerships when you're partnering with like a technology giant versus a company that's your size versus just, an in the garage, startup, right? So there's different ways that you'll even want to approach them. So in terms of a framework, let me give you a little bit more on that. So
Sure.
the first thing I always look for is a complementary technology fit. So in the case of Cloudinary right now, I take a look at, so Cloudinary focuses on media assets, images and videos, and we fit into a technology architecture stack, so a backend stack. And you could think about like a digital experience platform. If somebody isn't familiar with that, it's just what makes up your website. Think about an e-commerce provider. You'll have an e-commerce platform. You'll have a CMS which runs elements of your web page and your websites, and then you'll have a media management service, kind of like Cloudinary, all coming together to create this holistic end-to-end experience for an end user.
Hmm.
And in that case, it becomes obvious. So, okay, so then there's partnerships that are potential with a CMS provider or e-commerce provider, right? This is
Right.
I'm simplifying the example, but there's a
Yeah.
complementary fit there where we're talking to companies and they want to know if we're able to integrate with a certain CMS provider, or if we know of different CMS providers that we work really well with together. So there has to be this complementary fit. Um, there also can be, like I said earlier, about technology gaps or product gaps, that we're trying to fill. So those are different types of partnerships, and then we need to figure out like how would you want to offer those? You want to embed those features into your products. You want to offer them as an optional add-on and make it clear who they're being offered from. Do you want to just have a plugin that you provide to an end customer, make it their choice, and it's more of a co-sale relationship where they buy your service and they buy the other partner's service, but they come together in terms of the plugin. So that needs to be determined, and your approach may be different depending on the size of the company. It may differ depending on the technicals of actually bringing that service together, how complicated it might be to actually develop the integration. But then the next part is the business alignment. So,
Mm.
like I said earlier, you want to make sure that the target market is clear, the buyer personas are clear, the message resonates, and it's a good, a sizable market. What people I think don't understand is that technology partnerships are you need to approach them differently depending on the company that you're working with. So if you're working with, like I said, like a technology giant, like an Amazon or a GCP, somebody like that, you have to understand their programs. And you have to understand too that they're working with thousands of different partners. And your job is to figure out how you can elevate your position, amongst all of the different companies that they're working with. And there's different ways to go about doing that, whether you're working with AWS or Salesforce, they have different programs, and you need to understand like what makes stuff tick, how you move up in stature in those programs, and then how you get in front of their account teams, how you help them make more money, and how then therefore how they can think of you and bring you in under more types of opportunities. So that's something to figure out, and even the ROI for that is different than say what you would expect from like a systems integrator. And I've seen a
Mm.
lot of technology partnerships that are not successful because the measurement of success for the technology partner tends to be the same measurement that you would use to measure the success of an SI program, and it's different. Technology partnerships really can they can drive new business, they can drive new opportunities. It's possible, but what they also do is help with the hurdles of a sale. In any sale, you have to have there's a technology portion of the sale, and then there's this business portion of the sale. So the technology portion, and I'm talking about a B2B sale here.
Right.
The technology portion is when your sales engineers are working with engineers on the customer side, trying to make sure that this will work with our architecture, this will work with our setup. And then there's the business side, which is you're looking at pricing and terms and all those other elements. It's important that the technology side of it, that technology track, you get through it as quickly as possible. And the partnerships can help you do that. So it's great if your customer can contact your partner and say, hey, I'm looking at this technology. Do you know how it works? Can you work with it? They check a box. Yeah, we work with them all the time. It just alleviates the whole process. It makes it a lot easier to then go and sell to that customer. So it speeds up your time to sale. And that's where it's helpful. So the sourcing of opportunities is there, but more so on the influence or on accelerating the deal, making sure the deal actually happens is a key part of the ROI for technology partnerships.
So your advice there would be to really infuse the partnerships team or the person, if it's just one person, into that sales process to make sure that the effect of partnerships is being tracked on that or attributed to that.
Yeah, I think this is where it depends on the size of your organization if you're able to scale to that. But it's absolutely important that once the technology partnership is established, once you have the joint value proposition understood, you need to make sure that your sales team, your SEs on both sides have a very good understanding of that. And that's how you drive scale. So you need to create some sort of enablement of that combination of the sales process. Helping them understand the demand, the need, essentially the why. Why would somebody want to adopt these technologies together? What problem are they solving? So it isn't necessarily the person who put the partnership together. It's really about those downstream consumers of that partnership that need to understand that. You need to make sure you have a good process in place to educate them on that to make them successful.
Right. You had mentioned when we spoke before that you were the first U.S. hire, U.S. hire for technology partnerships, or the first VP of technology partnerships, if I'm recalling that correctly.
Both of those, yeah. To both of those.
Both of those. You were both of those.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So I'm curious if you could give a general background of how you thought about this starting off. As the first hire, right? So what was going through your mind? What are maybe some challenges that you faced with this that you wish, in hindsight, you would have tackled differently?
So I think it's very similar to, I think advice you might get or give to anybody starting a new job. You need to take time to assess the current situation. If you're walking into a program for the first time and you're the first hire, you need to assess the technology itself, and then what are the complementary points that are potential for partnerships. Like in my case, I described how there were complementary elements with CMSs and with e-commerce providers, but every company, it's going to be different. Talking to people internally, of course, talking to people who are working with SIs, they can help give you an understanding of that. Even a technology partner manager talking to a systems integrator about your technology, if they're already selling it, they'll have a very good idea already about what the complementary points are, and they'll have a very good idea about what technologies companies are using and which are the popular ones to go and take a look at, for an actual partnership. So they're great. So if you're in, and that was the case that I was personally in, but if you're in a case like that, it's a great starting point. But then from there, I think talking to the sales team, if you have a sales team already, depending on the size of the company, but understanding from them, who are, what are you hearing from customers when you're selling to them? It's possible that they're hearing from customers you need to be able to integrate with Service X, and Service X, they always make sure that you're certified. So you need to go and get a certification from them, right? So there's different hurdles that they're seeing already, and you can take a look at ways to reduce or eliminate those hurdles completely by establishing the technology partnership, by getting listed on the right page, getting certified by the right provider. So, it's really that level of assessment, and that's where you get your starting point. And then from there, it's all about the relationships. It's all about talking to others in the market, and then navigating the wars and kind of seeing where it takes you. Um, like you have to keep on socializing, and you have to keep on networking, and trading ideas, finding different programs to get into. I mean, that's essentially how it happens.
Yeah.
It's more art than it is science.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so one thing I'm thinking about is like in the example that you gave, you're someone just coming in and starting out, and you're doing all this discovery and you're having these conversations and you're thinking through these processes. And it takes a few months. It takes some time to really start building this up and doing that discovery.
Yeah.
How do you bridge the gap from that, right? That building up process to then now, you've started to build the program, you have your processes in place, and now, leadership is knocking on the door and saying, okay, like, what's the return? What's the ROI of this? Like, what are you producing? Like,
Yeah.
what are some ways to like bridge that gap?
This is where planning and expectation management is so critical, to anybody's success, really. It really comes down to making sure that, one, the overarching goals are aligned between you and your, executive management team, both on the short term and on the long term. So the executives may already have an idea for what they want to do. It may be that they want to go and partner with AWS, or they want to work with certain companies, or there's a list of mid-sized companies that they want to work with. So that may all be there. But then the second level is, what type of benefit are we looking for with these established partnerships? Is the goal to try and get new business source from them? Is the goal to try to, again, reduce the hurdles for our sales team? But there may be a bigger idea, which might take a year or 2 years to actually go and chase after. If there is a goal, which is a bigger goal like that, you need to make sure that it's clear what the incremental steps are in order to achieve that goal, whatever it might be.
Right.
And making sure that internally there's an understanding of what the return will be initially versus what the return should be, a year from now or 6 months from now, once the partnership is actually established. Because it's going to take time to establish the partnership, integrate it from an engineering standpoint, launch it, and then you start to see results. So a lot of it just comes down to planning and having that level of understanding, planning it out, and making sure everyone understands the timeline and what the actual result should be if all goes well, right? And then keeping them.
Right.
It's not necessarily the easiest, but I think when you're just starting out, if you're starting from nothing, trying to have multiple tracks going. So having a track working with a larger provider, getting some tracks going with some smaller providers, and maybe some that are your size, I think is a good point. Diversify as much as you can so that you can show some track, with some of the smaller providers, in a shorter period of time.
I read on LinkedIn, like one of the posts I read on LinkedIn is, right, there might be a goal in mind, right? There's a perceived benefit, like there is perceived value of partnerships from leaderships. Like we know it's valuable, but they all might not know exactly like where that value comes from, or they might have some skewed vision of where the value comes from. And so one of the things I'm thinking of, someone wrote, part of the partnerships person's role is to like do that education, like you said. Like they might be thinking that, oh, it's going to bring us value in XYZ way, but you as the partnership person know this is also going to bring value in this way.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna like this is, I have to like show you that this is another avenue that partnerships can bring value in. Is that something that's something I've read, but I'm curious if that's something that you've encountered or you've heard.
It really comes down to what people might understand already, what executives might understand already, what they're seeing from quote unquote partnerships already. At the end of the day, I mean, a lot of times partnerships in general in an organization, sometimes they're separated out to their own group. Sometimes they're falling under, the revenue generating teams, falling under the CRO. But I've even seen some technology partnerships, they fall under product because that's their focus. Their focus is on taking a look at what companies can we work with to fill product gaps, what companies can we look at from an M&A standpoint, and then therefore they work very closely with their corporate development team. So it really comes down to where it sits in the organization and what the focus of that organization is. If you're on the revenue generating side, there's, as much as you think that there's, long-term benefit, you have to also be thinking about the short-term goals
Right.
as well, and helping the team, make those goals. But really, like I said earlier, I mean, it comes down to the technology partnerships. They can help you fill those gaps. They can help you accelerate, sales cycles. They can generate new opportunities. But I would say in most technology partnerships, the generation of new opportunities is less so than on the acceleration side or on the product gap side. If you're able to fill a product gap, you have to help your company understand that there's a lot of business we're now getting because of us filling that product gap. Sometimes it's hard to attribute it specifically, but it is a piece of the puzzle. And that's the tricky part. Like, how much is it really adding from a value standpoint? You have to be clever about how you collect that data and then present it back to the business. It can be challenging, and every situation is different, of course. But
Any general advice on how to collect that data, or something that I know that's a really broad, a big question, but
yeah.
maybe something like when you first started that you didn't initially think of, that you learned, along the way.
Yeah. So you can do as much as you can to collect that data in Salesforce as much as possible.
Hmm.
That would be the teams, whether it be the sales team, the technology partner managers, or directors, inputting that information into Salesforce, and then having a way to report on it. So that's something you'd have to just figure out how you can do. There are also some great services that record the sales calls,
Yeah.
like Gong, services like that. And there's ways to implement them to be on the lookout for certain keywords. It's a bit more brute force, but you can also fit those into your data gathering processes to kind of help automate the process a little bit more. You kind of still need to have a human there to kind of see
Hmm.
if it aligns to the metric that you're trying to track. But really, it just comes down to, you have to be good at creating a way for people to provide you this information. And then you need to show them that you're looking at that information on a regular basis. And you need to be looking for holes where they didn't fill out the information. So it's a grind for sure, getting that data, but it's so important to get that level of data so that you could bubble it up to your executives about like where the value is, and where it's coming from.
Right. This was really great advice. Thank you so much, Gary, for joining us. Is there anywhere that our audience can connect with you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. Gary Ballabio is the name. My profile name too. You can also, I'm also on Twitter at Ballabio, but LinkedIn is really the best way to do that.
Yeah. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed our content, subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. For more content on tech partnerships, integrations, and APIs, check out our articles, ebooks, and other resources in the description.